And welcome back. News Hour continues right now. My guests tonight are two, Ndindi Nyoro, who is a Kiharu Member of Parliament, and Norman Magaya. They join me for this discussion tonight. Gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. A lot of things to discuss, but I want to begin with what's happening in Parliament this afternoon. We are told that Parliament is likely going to reject the regulations that have come from the Independent Boundaries and IEBC, Independent Boundaries Commission, Electoral Boundaries Commission, just because the regulations were not passed in Parliament. They were not taken before Parliament to the Committee on Delegated Legislation before they were gazetted by the IEBC. This complicates a lot of things. Among them is that there were 2020 regulations in 2021, and perhaps the dynamics may have changed. Very interesting indeed. But let me begin with the Member of Parliament. The fact that Parliament is saying plainly, we are rejecting this.
I think, Ken, it's not a matter of rejecting the proposals from the IEBC. All of us, we need our electoral processes to be regulated, and especially the amount of money that we spend, because we don't want a democracy where it is for the highest bidder.
Okay.
We all want a fair ground where the person with money and those not as privileged can have an equal opportunity to run for any political position. But I think it is the issue of processes,
okay,
because as you know, there are timelines to do this and that. In terms of IEBC, it was a matter of this ought to have come and to have passed 1 year prior to the general election.
Okay, okay.
So it's a matter of process, not principle.
Okay.
On a matter of principle, Ken, myself, especially as a young member of Parliament, we would be one of the people, and we are actually one of the persons on the forefront having those kind of regulations within our political system.
Okay.
Because as you know, we have commercialized our democracy too much, such that not very many young people would stand a chance to run for a credible bid for any political position.
Okay.
So it's more of the process, not the principle.
But more of the process, that's a technical bit of it. I mean, it has nothing to do with the proposal. It's a technical thing. Just because the process wasn't right, then we are not going to adopt them. Before I go to Wakili, don't you think Parliament is just rejecting this because perhaps some of them will not favor them? Especially the one that requires the party list, for example, to have a gender balance.
It favors everyone, Ken, first of all, and especially on the financial side.
Okay.
It is to the best interest of every politician.
Every political party.
For any person to go out there and sell themselves on the basis of what they are going to do to the people.
Okay.
So it favors everyone.
All right.
So as I repeat, it is a matter of the process. Because the regulations ought to have been passed 1 year before the general election.
Okay.
And as you know, we are expecting to have the next general election on the 9th of August next year. And therefore, again, I'm repeating, it is not on the basis of the content, it is not on the basis of the principle, it is basically a matter of the process and timelines.
Okay, okay. Wakili.
Ken, I have two issues about it. One, the law obligates IEBC to gazette these regulations at least 1 year to the election.
Okay.
To that extent, IEBC fulfilled its mandate by gazetting those rules on the 9th of August, because our next elections will be on the 9th of August next year.
It falls within the 12 months.
Yes. The second thing is that the Election Campaign Financing Act was legislated by Parliament. And under that act, Parliament obligated IEBC in mandatory terms to provide capping and ceilings for campaign financing. So Parliament should not have its own cake and eat it.
Okay.
They cannot have their own cake and take it. In the last general election, they passed a legislation to postpone the implementation of the Election Financing Act. This time round, I think they have been caught flat-footed. It's only good that these regulations take place.
Okay.
I only have a problem with the substance. That I think that the ceilings IEBC has provided actually commercialize our politics. If you look at the amounts provided, those amounts are actually what push people or motivate people to engage in corruption.
Corruption, yes.
Because if you are being asked as a woman representative for Nairobi to spend 117 million shillings in an election, how will you recoup that money? The salary of a member of parliament for 5 years will not amount to that amount of money. So there should be proportionality between the earnings that this person will get if he wins that office and what IEBC is providing for. So the amounts provided are not proportionate to the salaries of office holders. Two is that we are supposed to elect people based on policies, based on ideas, and not based on money. That the candidate with the best ideas, the candidate with the best policies is the one that would stand a chance, the best chance on the election date. But if you look at the IEBC regulations that they are provided, it is the candidate with the highest amount of money that will actually stand a chance on the election day. And that's where we have a problem with those regulations. So that the problem is with the substance, not with the process.
That's a total different view from the legislator. But what happens, because I think the regulations also talk about the seed capital you should have if you're running for an election. For example, you could have 20% of the total amount of money. So the capping is given at around 20%. So if you are to spend 100 million shillings and that's the cap, you should at least have 20, which means your friends come through. It's not about you who will get all the money.
An election is not a loan you are applying for, where you must have a minimum deposit. The best deposit you must have in an election is the best idea to change the lives of your people. This is the only investment that you need to have to stand a chance in any election, so that every child born out of any family can present himself or herself to the electorate, sell his or her ideas, and stand a chance at the ballot. The substance, you say it's the process, he says it's the substance. You don't agree on this in any way?
It depends with where you sit. First of all, I agree the caps are quite high, but you have to agree the semantics around the name capping. Capping provides a ceiling. Ceiling means you can play around in that wavelength, from zero to the amount indicated as the cap by the IEBC.
So long as you don't exceed it.
So long as you don't exceed it. But I also want to say that there is a whole difference between abstract political theories and the reality, the practical ones on the ground. The truth of the matter is that listening to my brother, that is idealism, and that is abstract theory. The abstract theory and idealism is that I would actually want me to run for any political position, or myself to run for any political position, without necessarily spending any money. But the truth of the matter is that an election involves a lot of logistics. Whereas the amount proposed there seems to be high, majority of the amounts actually listed, if you ask the individual members, and especially for MPs, the amount of money they spent in the last poll, you see that the caps are actually, like in Kiharu, checking the amount of money a candidate would spend in Kiharu, in any other constituency, the caps are a bit reasonable.
How much is Kiharu? What is the cap at?
For any credible
member of parliament, that is.
Member of parliament seats, I mean National Assembly, in a normal constituency, it depends. But it would oscillate from around 10 to even up to 60 million.
To 60 million,
But in the average, the reasonable average is around 20 to 30 million. 10, you'd be very lucky. Logistically and especially, not even dishing out. It involves a lot of logistics, moving from here and there, but the bulk of the money goes, and especially to the first members. Those people who are running for the first time, goes to marketing. Because, and I'm sorry, I'm diverting from the real real topic. I'm just saying this because I'm sure there are so many young people watching us and also driving some or drawing some inspiration. Politics has two facets. Number one involves what you call marketing. Marketing is where people can recognize your name, you are known, and then the second bit is sales. Sales is where, after people know this person is called John, this person is called Ken, then what are you selling? The marketing part involves a lot of money, that is for sure, because you need to put your name out there, you need to be known, and therefore, the figures that are listed to me, and especially for National Assembly members, are a bit reasonable.
A bit reasonable.
Yeah.
You disagree with this, Wakili, totally? Because it still maintains the process,
I wouldn't
not the
agree with
substance.
that, because if you are saying that an election would, for a member of parliament will cost between 10 million and at most 60 million, what is the net salary for a member of parliament
Yes.
for 5 years.
Okay.
Okay? Will they be able to recoup this investment?
About 60 million
what will
in
be
the
the
5 years.
what will be the return on investment? Okay? Because this will be a full-time job.
Yes.
What you are doing indirectly is asking them now to turn their eyes and see how they can manipulate
To have
the
their money back.
constituency development funds to get their money back, and how to manipulate the national government when they are doing legislation in parliament to recoup their funds.
Okay.
But you must also realize that we are faced with a very unique election in 2022 in the face of COVID-19, that candidates who have a name recognition stand a very good chance, because we are not going to have ordinary campaigns that we are used to. In the event that we have restricted campaigning in the face of this pandemic, and which is likely the case if we don't get vaccinations to our people, it will mean that a lot of money will be spent on advertisement and marketing for candidates. And so that pushes up the budgets in terms of logistics for marketing, in terms of merchandise, in terms of getting people to distribute the merchandise on behalf of candidates. So that may escalate the costs of this election
inevitably,
in terms of candidates participating because of the nature of the election that we are going to have. Otherwise, realistically, what we are doing is that we are going into an election and preparing prospective members of parliament, senators, governors, and even the president, who will be motivated by nothing.
4.4 billion shillings for presidential
Yes,
campaign.
he will be motivated by that to want to recoup his return on investment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
and you know,
unlike
the presidential candidate, a lot of people come in to invest in a presidential campaign. But a member of parliament and MCS don't enjoy most of those influences that people come in to plug into their campaigns. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Norman, I think the whole scenario is on many reasons.
Okay.
And I'm saying that because people venture into politics for various reasons. It is not purely a matter of profit loss kind of an account.
No, but that's not honest. That's not honest. You know why? Okay. I don't think you can just throw in money that let me spend 60 million. It doesn't matter. I'm representing my people.
Let me finish, Ken. There are many reasons why people go into politics.
Yes.
And if you look at it in terms of a business case, I can tell you, Norman, I mean, there are much better business opportunities out there than venturing into politics purely for profit making. And I say so because, look, for example, the cap given for the presidential candidates.
Yeah, presidential campaign.
Serious ones.
4.4 B.
4.4 B. Yes. In fact, that is lower than the usual amount that the previous candidates use.
Which means they spend more?
They spend more, the serious presidential candidates. If you look at the salary that is gazetted for the president, about per year, that would be
12,
just
13,
around, that would be like 20, on the higher side,
on the
24 million.
Okay.
Per annum.
Okay.
So in a 5-year term, we are talking about give and take 100 million shillings.
Yes.
Versus 4.4 billion. And therefore, there are many reasons why people venture into politics. I can tell you, speaking from where I am, if anyone, and I keep telling people this, anyone out there getting a motivation to venture into any elective position purely because of money, please, there are much better opportunities out there.
Okay.
If you are not coming in to serve, this is not a very good business case.
Let's conclude this discussion. So, from where I sit, the only reason members of parliament are rejecting this is because of the process, because it did not go before them. But my question, Wakili, is this. Some of these things left to the politicians, will they ever see light of day?
The truth of the matter is that the process has no problem. Members of parliament are laying a basis to once again suspend the Campaign Financing Act. And that's what they are going to do.
What is their interest? What is their interest?
And the interest is that there needs to be no disclosure as to how much a candidate is going to spend.
But it's
so that for purposes of accountability, whatever they earn and how they conduct their business and all that, there is no accountability as to how much was spent in the campaign. Okay. That is the whole point. Secondly, let us be honest. If people are going there purely for the purpose of serving people. We will not be having election petitions for members of parliament and all other positions going all the way to Supreme Court and people fighting for it in a matter of life and death. My brother here has just been in Kiamba fighting tooth and nail to win a parliamentary seat. If the intention was just for service to people, that would not have been the only motivation.
Okay.
So we must agree that other than it being a motivation and a desire and a calling to serve your people, that it's also a full-time employment for this member of parliament or for a governor and for others. And most of them look at what will be their return on investments. And that's why you have heard of cases.
Most, but not all.
Yes,
most.
Yes. I know of several members of parliament who actually have been there just to serve their people and have not looked at motivations to make money
Okay.
out
So
of
it's some. We
their
agree, some.
jobs.
Yeah, there were
And some
some.
of them have paid the price by losing their seats actually. Yeah.
Okay. Gentlemen, unless you have something to add on this,
No,
I
no,
need
let's
move forward. But those are regulations that we have been reporting on them and will continue to report on them, especially when Parliament takes that drastic action. They already have intimated that this is for rejecting. But gentlemen, let me bring you back to something else that happened during the week. Yesterday, there was a meeting at State House, Nairobi. We saw President... Pardon?
Mombasa.
Yes, Mombasa, State House Mombasa, where President Uhuru Kenyatta first hosted all the NASA principals. Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Odinga, Musalia Mudavadi, and Moses Wetangula were there. Then I also saw KANU chairman Gideon Moi. But when they came out, they spoke about three things that caught my attention in that short press statement. We discussed about the pandemic. We discussed about the economy. I believe this, what they didn't tell us, and that's what I'm seeking to understand tonight. Let me begin with you. You watch that body language first, which is away from what we want to discuss. But what didn't they tell us about that press conference, Ndindi?
First of all, Ken, I want to say from what I saw yesterday, that was like an AGM of ethnic kingpins. And what I saw are gentlemen who are trying to take us back to where we are really working hard to move from. Politics based on ethnic mobilization, because purely yesterday it was about politics. But of course, for optics, they had to come out with some real stories, which are fronts. The issue of telling us they were discussing about COVID-19, telling us about national unity, I think it was a facade. The real agenda yesterday was politics, and I am sure it has been demystified from yesterday, because I've seen in many of the outlets, media outlets, that the agenda is already out here. So the issue was basically about succession politics, and for me it is very unfortunate. It is unfortunate because our former party on which we were elected on, the party that is almost exiting the scene, that is the Jubilee Party, was elected with a supermajority of members of parliament. And no one in this world would ever believe that a party leader of a ruling party that has already formed government can actually be swallowed by the opposition, as we have seen, unfortunately, with our party leader.
Okay, so what were they discussing? What are this ethnic gathering, as you put it, what were they discussing?
I think yesterday's discussion, because I've read it from various sources, that the president is trying to reunite the NASA coalition, because he seems to want to back it. And even before I answer that, I want to really remind our president, because these matters are really touchy to us. The gentlemen I saw there have never, ever supported the president in his quest in the political journey. From the time he got into politics, those people have been the people on the other side of the fulcrum. And it is really a tragedy.
Even Musalia Mudavadi hasn't...
Musalia Mudavadi only backed Uhuru Kenyatta when he actually failed. Both of them failed.
But you said no one has ever...
The time when the president has been voted as president.
Yes.
None of them,
because they've been competitors.
They have been competitors.
Yes.
And therefore, Ken, the reason why my heart aches, and many of us, and especially from the bedrock of the president politically, is because we actually thought we had some agenda around which we were electing him on. Unfortunately, ameona sasa the people who have been opposing him along the journey all along are the people he can now unite to form the next government at the detriment of the people like us, who have stood with the president all along in his entire political journey. And therefore, I want to say that yesterday was purely a conglomeration of political ethnic kingpins coming together on how to share power post the 2022 elections.
Wakili, you watched it, you watched the body language, you saw everyone who was there. What they told us, I don't believe it. I don't know if you believe it, but read through what happened yesterday in Mombasa and the statement they gave us later.
I think one of the things to read from it is in most of these political happenings, it's good to listen to what is not being said rather than what is being said. But having said that, I think my brother is being dishonest in labeling the meeting in Mombasa yesterday as a conglomeration of ethnicity. Why so? He himself subscribes to the in support of the deputy president. The deputy president himself has been meeting ethnic groups. He met a delegation from Kitui yesterday. The other day he was with a delegation from Luo Nyanza and Kisii in Naivasha, and he has been doing this. So it's not correct to label leaders of national political parties as ethnic kingships. Two, the same thing, the same argument that is advancing today, the same argument that was being advanced against ODM in 2007 when William Ruto was a member of the Pentagon. So when did William Ruto cease being a tribal kingpin? So we need to be honest and tell Kenyans the truth. And we are in a political season, the political cycle has kicked in, and the president is a politician. And he has a right to participate in the political life of this country and the transition that is forthcoming. This is a unique election, unlike the previous election. This is a transitional election where we must have a new commander-in-chief.
Yeah.
And the different dynamics will come into play. And I think it has been clear that it is now very open to Kenyans that there's a complete divide between the president and his deputy. And each one of them is forging a different political path.
Okay.
So it's not good that when the deputy president is pursuing his political route, he's not being labeled when he's pursuing leaderships from different former provinces, he's not being labeled as seeking ethnic alliances. But when the president does so, he's being labeled as seeking ethnic alliances. At the end of the day, all politics is local. And we must appreciate the nature of the Kenyan nation. Okay. We are a conglomeration of tribes. And this is why no single community, no single political party can win an election. This is why Jubilee in 2017, and which my brother secured his parliamentary seat, collapsed so many parties. In 2013, it was an alliance between URP and TNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And other small parties.
Yes, they were forming an alliance between the Kalejins and Mount Kenya region. In 2017, they did the same, but brought in the smaller parties and collapsed them to form the Jubilee Party.
Okay.
This is the reality of the Kenyan politics, and it's not good to label it as an ethnic alliance. It is the nature of our politics, and our politics is local.
Perhaps the fact that we saw a leader from Western Kenya, leader from Nyanza, leader from Lower Eastern, right? Western Kenya were two, right? That perhaps is the reason why he is terming it as ethnic.
The other way to look at it is that there was the party leader of Wiper, there was the party leader of ANC, the party leader of Ford Kenya, and the party leader of ODM.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moish, you seemed more aggrieved to me that the president is meeting the people who never supported him, more aggrieved for that reason than the reason that he met them.
I am actually more aggrieved that the president finds time to plan his succession. And I say so because I thought the country and the economy is currently being bedeviled by a lot of issues that are more economic than political.
Okay.
And therefore, I could not even imagine that a sitting president, especially a president who is enjoying his second term, would actually find time to try and reunite his former enemies and his former opponents in terms of succession. I thought his plate is already full. Number one, because as you know, our economy has almost collapsed. in terms of debt. As you know also, currently, we are facing a pandemic. And I thought the president ought to be preoccupied currently on how Kenyan people are going to be inoculated and vaccinated from this coronavirus. And every time we see the president coming to public, most often than not, he's coming on political issues, and especially planning his succession. Probably, if I was in a position to whisper to the president, I would actually caution him and request him the remaining few days towards the end of his two-term presidency. I thought he would focus more on leaving real legacies.
Moish, tell me, what is wrong with President Kenyatta planning his succession? Perhaps if you explain to me that, I will get to you where you are taking us.
There is nothing wrong. It is just a matter of priority. And possibly it is even more insensitive to us out here, because we think, and especially when we go to the people that we serve and represent, there are more urgent issues for the president and the government to focus on. There are more issues that are more economic in nature. There are more issues that are more health in nature, other than, spending all his energy every time. I was reading on one of the newspapers that for the last, I think, 4 months, he has met the former prime minister, the opposition leader, more than 10 times, and of course planning his succession. The president yesterday came out telling us that they were talking and planning and exchanging ideas in terms of the COVID-19 and economic issues and national unity. We have that luxury, most of us who are out here in the cold, to plan about the future. The president is already occupying the highest position. He shouldn't be talking and exchanging notes. He should be doing those things about COVID-19 vaccination. We may have the luxury of talking out here with my brother and all the other politicians, but at least the president himself has the mandate, the responsibility, and the resources.
Okay.
And I thought you'd be spending that time to plan about the real issues that are really affecting the Kenyan people. Ken, as you know, and that is why I sympathize with the president. The president took our economy in 2013 when our debt levels were quite low. Currently, as we talk, this economy that is led by the president has overborrowed.
And the deputy president
has, you know, of course, that is semantics.
No, he's still the deputy president.
But let me finish.
Yes.
Has overborrowed even beyond the limits we have set in parliament. We have set around 9 trillion Kenya shillings.
That's not possible.
They have overborrowed, let me tell you.
Then parliament is not working.
I mean, that is why I have told you they have overborrowed, because they don't even believe in the rule of law. We have put a cap of borrowing
at 9 trillion.
At 9 trillion Kenya shillings.
And they've gone past
Currently,
that.
You just need to Google your phone.
Yes.
Check the central bank website. The central bank website, you'll check that the debt that is domestic and the foreign debt is going to in excess of 8 trillion. That they have not added the money is guaranteed by the government of Kenya, which has actually real debt in excess of 4 trillion Kenya shillings. We are now currently at maybe close to 120% debt to GDP ratio. I thought the country, and especially the president, would be more preoccupied about how to make our economy start again, or at least take the economy to where Kibaki left, other than every now and then engaged in planning his succession. It would actually be easier for the president to plan about his succession if he succeeded in his 2 terms. Unfortunately, he has a lot of kibarua to do to convince Kenyans who are already hungry and angry about the direction they should take politically.
If that's true, and I haven't looked at that website, if that's true that the government that the parliament should be oversighting has overborrowed and gone beyond the ceiling, that's, I put it squarely to parliament, because the work of parliament has failed. If that's true, parliament has failed. Wakili, I see you holding your head. Are you also perturbed?
You know, my brother here is annoyed with his pastor and has chosen a devil and hopes that the devil will take him to heaven. Eurobond 1, Eurobond 2 were borrowed when William Ruto was deeply in government. The Jubilee first term was actually a co-shared presidency between William Ruto and President Uhuru Kenyatta. And this is when the magnitude of this debt was taken through the ceiling. This is when SGR was renegotiated and the amounts doubled. This is when most road constructs were renegotiated and the contracts doubled. So you cannot speak from both ends of your mouth, my brother. The problem we have today, you cannot exclude William Ruto from it. He's not the priest to take us to heaven. He is deeply part of this problem because he was there when it was being conceptualized. The debt ceiling that was raised, the motion was moved by Eden Duale, yeah, who was the leader of majority then. Yeah, we opposed it when we were in court then. They outnumbered us with their tyrant of numbers and raised the debt ceiling.
In Parliament.
If he's saying today that the Treasury is borrowing above the ceiling provided by the Parliament, is because they taught the Treasury bad manners, and the Treasury knows that it can do things, yeah, with a complacent Parliament. The budget-making process under the 2010 Constitution is not what we were customized to under the retired Constitution. Today, Parliament is involved in the day-to-day budget-making process, resource allocation, and taxation. If they wanted to cut down on the things that are wrong today,
They would.
they will do it. And if they have been assembling in Karen with over 100 members of Parliament, those members of Parliament should come to the floor of Parliament and make meaning out of their numbers. Because with their numbers, they can change the entire budget cycle, they can change taxation policies in the finance bill, and alter our entire taxation basic structure at the moment, and alleviate the suffering that Kenyans are going through.
Yes.
So it is dishonesty that we are being given a person who is part of this problem, and that's why he's not confronting it. Even if he's at loggerheads with his boss, but if he has the numbers in Parliament, they will do it. Raila Odinga used to do it with Kibaki during the Grand Coalition government. He will use his numbers to influence things. We have not seen any motion, any bill that is being fronted by his side of the political divide.
He says it's impunity. He says it's the impunity of the executive.
If there is executive impunity,
yes,
the executive impunity stops at the door of Parliament. Parliament is the one that guards the gate between executive impunity and the rule of law. And since they have the numbers, and this is what they have been touting to Kenyans, that they have the numbers on their side, let them make meaning out of these numbers and alleviate the suffering that Kenyans are going through.
I think it would be naive. It would be naive for anyone to argue with facts, and especially facts that come out as figures, because figures are stubborn. When President Uhuru Kenyatta took over the reins of this country in 2013, the debt of this country was just around 1.6 trillion Kenya shillings. By the end of his first term, Ken, and I hope you are listening.
Of their first term.
Their first term.
Yeah, their first term, not his first term.
It was 4-point-something trillion Kenya shillings.
Yes.
Currently, we are talking about close to 11 to 12 trillion. If you add the debt guaranteed by GOK to SOEs, that is state-owned enterprises, and county governments. And therefore, it is naive for anyone to purport that the Jubilee borrowing spree started in the first term. That is number one. Number two, the issue of borrowing, the point I brought forth is not even anything around the 9 trillion. It is the issue of borrowing beyond the limits set by Parliament. And Ken, you cannot blame Parliament on this. We have already done our job, put the cap on 9 trillion, but of course, as you know, this regime respects no one. It does not respect any rule of law, and therefore, they can overborrow and ask us, Mutadu. Number two, if you check the color and paint of the Jubilee regime in the first term, that is when we had electrification going to every village in this country, we could see where the borrowed money was actually going. That is when the Jubilee regime built the many kilometers of road that the president keeps talking about. That is when even the SGR that he mentioned, we could see tangibles. Some, of course, were overpriced, like the SGR. Even some of those projects were overpriced, but we could see them. This handshake term of the president and Magaya's former boss, that is Raila Odinga, the president came on KTN and addressed the nation that there is something called UHC, there is something called that is the universal health care, there is something called food security, something called manufacturing, and the other one about housing project. After the handshake, Mr. President, where did these projects go? I mean, I am saying you cannot argue with facts. If you are arguing with facts, tell us how many houses has this handshake regime of Jubilee and Raila built? How many? How many viwadas, manufacturing companies, have we seen coming out of this term? If you talk about food security to me is even actually beyond. It is the whole issue of agriculture. Now as I came, a farmer from Kiharu, a tea farmer, called me that Munya went around in many barazas across the country promising farmers the issues about their prices. They are going to do things to ameliorate the matter. What has they gotten? Other than barazas, the tea prices are the same. The coffee prices are the same. The price of milk is actually enslaving the farmer. How? The farmer was selling our milk in 2010. The farmers in Kiharu in 2010, even at Magaya's place, they were selling milk, raw milk, at 30 shillings per litre. Raw milk. In Nairobi, we were buying it at 25 to 30 per half litre. That is around 60 shillings per litre. Currently, the price of milk, raw milk to the farmer, has not changed. It is around 30 to 35. How much are we buying in Nairobi? Around 55 to 60. That is 120 per litre. What I'm saying is that this second term of the handshake has been a lot of pain to the Kenyan people. There are no deliverables, whether tangible or intangible. The economy is almost collapsing. Our people in business arena are crying every day. But at the very least, you could associate some real tangibles in the first term.
Okay. He said data is stubborn, and I will say facts are stubborn. You can change everything, but you cannot change facts. One, it was in Jubilee's first term that the maize farmers in the North Rift were taken through cycles. One, sold to fixed fertilizer, okay, promised a fertilizer plant that never took off. And this was all being done by the deputy president that he supports. When the time came for them to deliver their proceeds to National Cereals and Produce Board, the biggest supplier to the National Cereals Board was the deputy president himself. And his closest allies had imported maize from Uganda and Tanzania, flooding the local market and completely crowding the local farmer out. Three, if you look at the architecture of the economy we have today, my brother says that this is a handshake government. But every week, they attend meetings in Karen at the official residence, a state property in Karen, where the deputy president sits. So why are you attending meetings in a state property where the man holding that property is enjoying it, cutters of his position as the deputy president, and you tell us that he is not part of government? Yeah? At what stage did he stop being part of government? Three, the entire Jubilee cabinet today, 50% are people who are appointed by William Ruto. And most of them are in critical sectors that have not influenced other than harm Kenyans. One is Ministry of Energy, okay? We have gas prices today going through the roof. They have not done anything. We have the Ministry of Trade, where we have a clueless minister who is not doing anything, appointed by their own principal, okay? Just to mention a few.
Okay.
So it is dishonest. It's good to be candid and tell Kenyans that you are part of this regime, you have failed Kenyans, and it's only good that Kenyans send the two of you packing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I need to conclude this because I have one more topic to talk about. But that dishonesty, in fact, if you're going to take the pluses in the first term, I think it's also good to take the minuses, especially when you're still sitting there. I don't know what you think.
You know, Ken, the reason why I was laughing when Magaya was speaking and purporting that there are some ministers that have been appointed by the deputy president. First of all, I will need to see in the constitution where that mandate rests with the deputy president. But number two, every Kenyan now, even a toddler, knows that every government instrument currently has been weaponized against the deputy president and his friends, including myself. You know, I have been Nimerala Kwasel even one night because of my association with the deputy president. And therefore, it needs no explaining there is no need to belabor the point with the platitudes. The Deputy President of Kenya, every person knows. If even the president had the power to sack him, he would have done it not yesterday, but a long time ago.
Okay.
But fortunately, the people like Magaya who are living in denial in the past of the vice presidency, where the vice president was appointed by the president, and therefore people could not visit him or her in their residence, that is a bygone chapter. The current presidencies we have is the president and the deputy. The best that the president can do, or the worst, so to say, is what the current president has done to his deputy, taking over all his roles, donating his powers to the ministers, donating the other power to his former opponents, like the NASA principals, and that has happened, and Kenyans know. The Deputy President, William Ruto, is Deputy President just by the title. All his roles are done by Matiang'i, others are done by his former boss, Raila Odinga, others even donated to his current boss, Kalonzo Musyoka. And I want to challenge my brother, I mean, you need to smell the coffee. Don't spend all your life working for opposition leaders. You can find your way into supporting people who actually win elections so that you can serve the Kenyan people using the
Are you asking Magaya on TV to cross over?
You know, what I need to tell him is that I have been in opposition many years of my life. Then I have been in government. Yeah, and I enjoy it. But I'm preparing him that he is going to be in opposition for the first time, and let him prepare to take it with grace. Yeah.
Now that you're talking about responsibilities and government, I'll play the video of the week in a little while, because the video of the week this week is based on corruption. It's borrowed from a country, not Kenya. I'll be playing it. But first, let's talk about government and responsibilities. Now that Deputy President William Ruto is not in government, when he was apologizing on behalf of the government, which role was he assuming then, Mheshimiwa, about the deportation of the Turkish Turkish citizen?
Responsibility has two areas, Ken. There is the position, and there is the power that goes with the position. The Deputy President occupies the position of the Deputy President. But the real power, as Kenyans know, and the real responsibilities have been taken over. The reason why he found it wise and prudent to apologize is that, Ken, we know the issue was not even about the Turkish investor. The real issue is about anyone seen to be close to the Deputy President. Why am I saying so? Every time you see DCI Kenoti, every time you see Matiang'i and his other brother Kebisho, they are all over trying to outdo each other on who will humiliate the Deputy President and his friends the most. It's like they get a prize maybe after the cabinet meetings on who humiliated the Deputy President the ending week. Probably they get some prizes or pay rise. That is the kind of shenanigans that we have been treated on. And therefore, the Deputy President apologizing was just reiterating the fact that every Kenyan knows that this regime is weaponizing every single facet of the government and the instrument to target the Deputy President and anyone who is perceived to be afraid. So it was not purely about the Turkish investor. It is the global issue about every corruption case you see. It is about an ally of the Deputy President.
How is that even possible?
I'm not even talking and trying to speak for those who have been taken to court. But it cannot be a coincidence that KEMSA, people ate money. Hadharani.
I mean,
you never needed a lot of investigations. It was a real matter, raw matter happening then. The president told the country, I am giving the DCI 21 days. I have counted, I have multiplied the 21 days. I'm always putting a power after the 21. The reason? After the list came out, it was taken maybe to the president. The names therein were his friends and the people close to him, and therefore the matter ended there. So all I'm trying to say is that every single action we are seeing, and especially with the overzealous ministers who I've just mentioned, and the PSs, it is just a matter of overdoing. Who is bringing Deputy President William Ruto down, and who is humiliating him the more.
All right. What attracted my attention in that apology was on behalf of the government, he was apologizing. So you're apologizing on behalf of the government that took that action. To some quarters, it looked insincere. To other quarters, it looked as if you were charging a base. To others, perhaps it was a genuine apology, Wakili.
I think first of all, it's a good time to be alive. My brother here in 2017 said that if the 6 Wakoras rule against Uhuru's win, Uhuru should suspend the constitution and rule by decree. I'm happy to be alive to see him baptized anew, that now is the proponent of the rule of law. And actually that was very unfortunate coming from a member of a revered constituency, that is Kiharu. Secondly, for the deputy president to purport to apologize on behalf of the government of Kenya, that event notwithstanding, we must read that comment and contextualize it with all other government actions. It means he's been part and parcel of this government. He has been part of the decision making for him to be able to proffer an apology. But above all, it's good that we have our brother here. They were in the same manifest together going to Uganda. Perhaps he could share and tell the country what kind of investor is this, what are his investments, and most importantly, we have so many hustlers that they have created awareness here. Yeah? Why will they be taking the people who should be helping those hustlers to a neighboring country instead of having them create jobs for those hustlers here? Okay. So it is double standards. And that's why I've said that you cannot take away, and the entire mess, 90% of the Jubilee mess took place in the Jubilee first term, when we had some sort of a co-shared presidency. That is when we had the mega corruption scandals, we had all things going wrong, we had the abrogation of the law, and disregard and emasculation of parliament. Today, my brother is not willing to confront the inability of the legislature that he sits in to rein on the executive. And the executive needs to be stopped, because an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere.
Yes.
So they have, as the legislature, have the mandate under the constitution to be able to provide accountability to the Kenyan people by stopping executive actions. And it's good that they have touted that they have the numbers in parliament. They should put these numbers to good effect and stop the executive in its traps. If, for example, today they say that Minister Matiang'i and Kibicho are being used to weaponize the criminal justice system against proponents of the deputy president. Our constitution is clear. We have political rights today. You have the right to associate and support any leader. If these are glaring and they have evidence and using their numbers, censor these people on the floor of parliament.
I think there was
and get
even
them
a
out of office.
They
have always spoken out. They have always spoken about it. And lastly, I just wanted to challenge him that their own member, Muhammad Ali, brought a censure motion against the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure.
Yes.
Yeah?
James Macharia.
We are the only country in East Africa today that is constructing 1 kilometer of road costing 1 billion shillings. In essence, we are constructing 1 meter costing 1 million shillings. It is only happening in Kenya. And when this motion was brought, my brother here was one of the people who defended the CS. Yeah? At that time, he backpedaled and realized that he needed to be in defense of a tribal cocoon. Yeah.
Gentlemen, I have about 6 minutes on the clock. I know you need to respond, and you will respond as your closing remarks. But let's take a look at the video of the week. Now that we're talking about corruption, let's look at this video of the week. Then we'll come back and close with the gentleman here.
Corruption this, corruption that, corruption there, corruption here, corruption. What about it? Show me corruption, and I'll show you the culprits. Yes, they're corrupt, but who do they corrupt? Yes, they're corrupt, but who corrupts them? Well, corruption is not only practiced by the politicians and the businessmen. It is also the culture of almost every Zambian. In fact, on behalf of all the youths whom our elders claim to be the future leaders of our country, it's time to take a radical approach towards the transformation of all Zambians in order to deal with this pandemic called corruption.
It is important for every Zambian to understand that we cannot take this country to the next level until we make a deliberate decision to destroy all the corrupt and anti-progressive practices in our various fields of work.
We call upon each and every one of us to run an introspection about our daily lives. How many of us can be comfortable and transparent enough to disclose the source of our success? How did you win that contract?
How did you get that job?
How did you acquire your driver's license?
How did you get that promotion?
How did you get those high grades at college?
And how do you always find yourself at the front of every long queue?
Every successful corruption practitioner started their grooming from somewhere.
The home,
the church,
the mosque,
the community,
the college,
the school,
the NGO.
So to claim that government is corrupt, it is proof of how corrupt the citizens are.
Yes, the leadership of the country is the reflection of the people.
Meaning that if you want to know how corrupt a leadership is, just take a look at what the citizens are doing. Yes, take a look at yourself also. You, yes you are probably contributing to the destruction of Mother Zambia. So beat it.
Well, just take the name Zambia out of that video and substitute it with Kenya, and all those words for those girls who, by the way, I don't know them, falls right
And
in place.
They got polls tomorrow, by the way.
They're doing
Zambia.
Oh, they're doing their polls tomorrow. Yes, I know.
Yes.
A number of Kenyans are already there.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, we need to close. We have a few minutes on the clock, but I'll give you an opportunity because you wanted to respond before we close.
Yeah. First of all, I have listened to my brother. And as I said there before, it is good for us to argue with facts that Kenyans and viewers can associate with. It is not a coincidence that we can see real things that were happening in the first term when the president was working closely with the Deputy President William Ruto.
Okay.
The things I've mentioned, like the railway, however much it was overpriced, it happened. It is also not a coincidence that after the handshake, and after, of course, the president took over the roles of the deputy president and allocated some to his friends and the other and the ministers, and creating a super minister, that especially the 4 pillars that he announced, none of them took off. There is no coincidence that UHC is dead now. There is no coincidence that manufacturing never happened, never peaked. Food security is just in the files.
Okay.
And there is no coincidence that the houses that the president announced and promised, it has not been fulfilled. The synergy that was there before, there is no synergy now. And when a dictatorial regime wants to dominate, the number one thing they do is, first of all, to bring opposition closer. What happened through the handshake is that the legislative arm of this country actually collapsed. I sit in parliament, but I can tell you, Parliament of Kenya is a rubber stamp of State House. Whatever the president and his brother, Raila Odinga, wants passed in that house, it passes.
But you go
Why?
with the numbers, my
Because
brother.
the president has the resources. The president, of course, has a few members from the Jubilee Party. All the other members of the opposition are with him. Whatever needs to pass actually passes. Number 2 is that for any dictatorial regime to thrive, they collapse institutions. I've just talked about the legislative arm. We have seen how they actually wanted to bulldoze the judiciary. We have seen now the independent institutions currently. Okay. They are actually like departments from the State House. Currently, we need to salvage our country because we do not have institutions. We now have a parochial kind of a state.
And that salvation will come from?
That salvation is coming from the Hustler Nation.
The Hustler Nation. Close this for us, Wakili.
Oh, I thought I'm coming to the video.
On the video on corruption, yes.
One is that he's spoken about food security. Gulana Kulalu was a Jubilee project from the first term. And it was brought down by what I have mentioned. Importation of maize from neighboring countries, okay, and lack of capacity to invest, even when scientists at the Kenya Agricultural Research Institute advised that Gulana Kalalu was not economically feasible to do the produce. They went ahead. And the deputy president was its proponent number one. Secondly, we are talking about manufacturing. Okay? How do we prosper Kenya better? How do we build Kenya better if we are making calls to local banks here to lend to investors to go and invest in Uganda? Yet we are lying to Kenyans that we are promoting hustlers local here. We should be building industries here, making those calls to many banks here,
come and invest
to invest here,
okay,
so that we create jobs for these hustlers.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we need to be clear. Lastly, today my brother has admitted here that unlike what they have been telling Kenyans that they have majority in parliament, he's just admitted today that they are on the minority.
Okay.
That their numbers don't count. Their numbers simply don't add up. Because if their numbers added up, it wouldn't matter what the president would want. Yes, they will stop it in his, they will stop him in his tracks.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's good that we face these realities and tell Kenyans the truth.
Okay.
And most importantly is that the person proposing a model to Kenyans today, saying this will rise you out of poverty, that model has nothing to do with his own life story. He never went through it. He never made it through it. He simply cannot lie to you that you will make it through what he's telling you.
Okay.
You can only make it if somebody is giving you a model that has been tested by himself. It defines his life history. It defines his business history. And it takes you to where, possibly, not to where he is, but anywhere near to where he is, and lifts you up from the poverty levels.
All right. We have about a minute to close.
I didn't know, Ken, that I would come to engage in hubris. I mean, personal attacks. And I now understand where Kalonzo Musyoka comes from. When he comes on TV and tells us that his only agenda to run for the presidency of Kenya is actually to defeat William Ruto. Ever since my brother came here, there is no single sentence without the name William Ruto or an insinuation of William Ruto. Number one, I talked about food security. He had to find a way to come and camouflage the whole thing with a personality. I mean,
but just accept the reality. Gulana Kulalu was your project.
I mean, Magaya, it is good for
on
when
the
you
failures
come
and
on
the
such a
successes.
station like KTN. It is always polite that when you come, the things you say, you can substantiate them. All these are the kind of lies that the likes of the opposition
I say
leaders,
what I mean, and I mean what I say.
with the help of this regime, have been perpetuating. But I want to comment on the video.
Yes, as we close.
About corruption. You know, Ken, I want Kenyans to know, even as I reference he insinuated on some comment I made in 2017 about Kenya needs a benevolent dictator. As I come to the corruption side, I actually thought Kenya needed a benevolent dictator. However, there is a difference between a benevolent dictator and a petty dictator. A benevolent dictator are people like Lee Kuan Yew. And I've said that before. People who were selfless. They were dictators, yes, for the general good. The difference between Lee Kuan Yew, General Park of South Korea, who really did what they ought for the general welfare of the people, is that the petty dictators are people who actually dictate for self. Whatever they do, they become dictators to some themselves. And that is the tragedy where we have reached as a country in matters of corruption. The biggest corruption act happening in our country now is not bribery. It is not even cuts that people keep talking about. It is not kitu kidogo. It is the fact that some people have actually stolen the entire country through something called state capture. They have penetrated all the sectors of this country using the policies because they're in the positions of power. When you go to the financial sector, they are there. When you go to fintech, they are there. In agribusiness, they are there. And therefore, even as we work in parliament, the policies we make as a government, you can actually never tell whether they were made for the farmer or the processor. Whether they were made for the person borrowing money from the bank or for the bank. Because there is clear show of interest. There is clear conflict of interest between the leadership and the roles they should be carrying out.
Gentlemen, this conversation on corruption, I think it's a whole topic that if we try to finish now, we'll not be able to finish it. But I want to thank you, Norman. Good to see you. I know we are inviting you back. We'll have a story to tell Kenyans, and I'll be speaking to Norman again when we get the opportunity. And Ndindi, thank you so much for coming and sharing your perspective. And it's very important this conversation begins because we are heading into the election. We have a year, less than a year now, to do all this and get new leaders into power. So we'll be having this discussion. And don't forget that we began Kivumbi 2022 on Monday, and every Monday we'll be having Kivumbi right here from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. right here on KTN. So remember to tune in every Monday from 6 to 11 for Kivumbi, because it's very important that you know what's happening. And tomorrow is Thursday, Crossfire Thursday. Sophia Wanuna will not be hosting, but Akisa Wandera will be hosting that show tomorrow night. So make sure you tune in. And plus, we start broadcasting at 6 a.m. So tune in. My name is Ken Mijungo on behalf of the whole team, and Damien Evans, our sign language interpreter. Earlier on, we want to say thank you for watching. Have a good night. God bless. And let's do this same place, same time, right here on KTN News. Have a good night.